Welcome back, everyone, to the VIBE EDU Podcast. My name is Joshua Snapper, and I have the honor and pleasure of being with Kim Gameroz, Mitch Weathers, and TJ Vari as we are kicking off the second episode of our leadership series. We did teacher leadership's conversation last week, which was you're not just a teacher. And today we're going to talk about the assistant principal role and where their impact is. I think that was kind of the direction we went with our first session. So who wants to kick us off for the assistant principal leadership influence conversation?
Not me.
Shaking her head no.
It's on my list.
TJ was fired up before, so I'm going to throw it to him.
Yeah, I was fired up pre-show. Stuff that maybe Kim's a little afraid of what I might say today, but I will say that the assistant principal is the backbone. I mean, of the administration in a school, the assistant principal is a back, in my opinion, and I was as an AP, they're the backbone in any quality system. The assistant principal knows their role and they're trying to support the principal as like their primary function and then grow the teachers who they have on their caseload. And I would say in between that is in support of the principal, it's making sure the principal can be the principal and do the principaling things that they need to do. So constantly taking stuff off of their plates and doing the exact same thing for the teachers. If it doesn't have to do with teaching and learning, I'm trying to figure out how we don't have to do that or do it in a diminished way or doing the least amount of work that has to do with it, like paperwork or whatever. We can get into that. But I think that assistant principal role is critical to the effectiveness of a school. And so if you're an assistant principal out there, I just want to elevate you and speak to you in a way that brings joy to your domain. And I do want to come back to this concept of a domain, but we'll do that after everybody else chimes in.
I was thinking of, when I was working at the district level, I saw a lot of people who were like me, like teachers on special assignment, who then went into assistant principal positions. And in speaking to them, I can remember going like, tell me everything. Like, tell me everything. What is it like? Because at the time, I think I was also thinking, is that where I go next? Like, is that for me? And I think a lot of conversations I remember having were around supporting teachers. Absolutely. So I said, like you said, grow your teachers. So yes, I love that. Grow your teachers, support them. But I can remember a lot of conversations too around like, I'm putting in like quotes, I get to deal with all the behaviors, right? Like all the behaviors come to me. When there's issues, the teachers send me the children. And then now I'm having conversations in my office all day long. And I'm like trying to solve these problems. And then I make them go back to their classrooms. And then I've got like 3 more waiting for me. And so I'm just kind of thinking like, I would love us to kind of talk about that and what you guys, I don't know how you feel about that, how to go about that. Is that really what an assistant principal should be doing? I'm just so curious because I know lots of teachers feel that way about assistant principals. Like it's their job to handle behaviors. And so I don't know, I think we should talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my first position was Dean of Students, and that was my role was
AP.
Well, no, it wasn't even designed as an AP role. It was like all of the crap that nobody wanted to do got pushed on the Dean of Students. So like I had textbooks and I had lockers and I had, bus duty and all that kind of stuff that nobody wanted to do. In addition to the fact that I had 1,200 students that I was solely the person that dealt with student behavior. So I essentially felt like I was just the sheriff. Like I just walked around the school to make sure that kids did what they were supposed to do in a low poverty area, Title I school that, had a lot of issues in the community. And so it was a really tough position to hold, but it was also tough because a lot of the expectations that were put on me were not what I valued.
I think you meant high poverty school.
Sorry, what did I say?
Low poverty.
No, I meant
Title
high
I. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm I'm forever kind of like in awe of a really committed and gifted assistant principal, primarily because unless you did like a dean of students step that you had, Josh, like you're stepping in, and I think it was you, TJ, that mentioned this the last time we recorded. There's nothing you do as a teacher that translates into the principal's office other than relationships with kids, right? Some of the best APs I've ever worked under or with, like with Organized Binder, they're gifted at developing relationships with all kids, and oftentimes some of the toughest behavior challenges on campus. But yeah, I'm always kind of like, wow, you made this transition. You did this one thing probably for quite a while and got good at it, and felt a calling for another challenge or to, widen your impact, whatever that it might be. And then unless you have, and this, I'd love to hear Josh and TJ weigh in on this, unless you have a really good mentor in your principal, how are you figuring out how to do this job? Because most districts that I've interacted with around the country don't have like a boot camp necessarily for administrators like we do for teachers, like the new teacher orientation and the first 2 years in BITSA or TIPS, depending on where you are, like just some support. I've never seen that. And maybe it does exist. I've not been an administrator, but yeah, I've always just been kind of like, wow, you are the one that's dealing with the behaviors. You're dealing with all the stuff. And some people are just really, really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I know some people that have no interest in becoming a principal. They're very happy in that. And I think it's probably because they are so in touch with kids still. I don't know, but
yeah, a couple things. One, that programming does exist and it's scalable. So shout out to Delaware, shout out to Delaware Department of Education, shout out to Wilmington University. We have a collaboration through our company, Joe and I, at the Schoolhouse 302, and we do run all the induction programming, which is a 1-year boot camp for new administrators, primarily assistant principals. It's unique. I don't know of very many things. We've talked to other states who are trying to do stuff, but we basically credential them as administrators, and it's through the PSEL standards. It's well defined. They even get doctoral credit for going through the coursework. We've been doing that for it's almost a decade now. But I will say, one of the problems with what you just described, well, let me say 2 problems. One, hopefully you're hiring good teachers. Good teachers don't typically have the behavioral issues in their classrooms. I came from a high school where I didn't have very many behavioral problems in my classes. Again, high poverty, urban environment. And then I went into suburban school. Some of the systems needed help on the student support side. And I remember I had 2 brand new interventionists, which is like the dean position that Josh is describing, that just handle discipline, which we can come back to. And I remember working with them prior to the school opening my first year as an AP, and they were like, what are we going to do? How do we know like what to do when we get all the kids off the buses? I'm like, never done discipline before. I didn't even have discipline in my classroom. So like I said this to the lady who reminds me of this even 10 years later. I said, we're just going to have to wait for the first kid to be bad. And she reminds me, like, it's such a weird thing to say, but we were going to have to overcome that hurdle when we get to it. And then the second problem is you do get this skill, whether it's from teaching or assistant principaling, where you have these great relationships with kids, but it's a double-sided sword because the kid might not like the teacher or the teaching environment or the class or whatever, that they don't like when they're in the classroom, but they do like being around the assistant principal or the dean. And so they're itching to get kicked out of class. And that's hard for any assistant principal to manage, because the kids want to be in the principal's office when you want them to be back in the classroom, when you don't want them to be in the principal's office. So just a tip on that is giving kids as much time as you possibly can outside of the classroom, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, and bus duty, in extracurriculars and sports, so that they're not craving that from the assistant principal when they're supposed to be learning math.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I was thinking back to a principal we were visiting, and she has a new assistant principal at her school. And I was like, how is it? Like, you have a new assistant principal, like you're starting over, right? We were there with you the past couple years and you guys were like a dynamic duo, like such a good team. And she's like, my one regret is that I did not prepare my former assistant principal for this next jump. And she's like, that's on me. And now I know that. And I feel like that is something that I personally want to work on this school year, is really mentoring, right, my new AP, which I love how you were talking about that, because I instantly went to her and her thought process and everything. I also was thinking of in our Facebook group, Becoming the Bison, we have a Facebook group. There's about, I don't know, 800 and something teachers in there from all across the country, all grade levels. There's principals in there, APs in there. And this one teacher, she just posted maybe a couple weeks ago, she said that her assistant principal looked at her and said, I will never go back to the classroom ever again. And this is like just like a teacher going to an AP saying, support me, help me. I need you to grow me, right? Grow me. I need help with behaviors. I need some support here. And the assistant principal looked at her and said, like pretty much like a too bad, so sad sort of a thing. Like, good luck. I will never be going back to the classroom. And I was thinking, wow. When you have somebody like that in an assistant principal position, who really, you're saying like their goal is to grow teachers, support teachers, work through discipline, be the backbone. Like, what if that's your backbone? Like, seriously, what if that mentality in an AP is the backbone of the school? Then what do you do? As a teacher, what do you do?
I don't even understand that. Like, what do you mean? They're like, I'm confused. I mean, I'm speechless. What do you mean? They said
so like they're not going to go to the classroom to support the teachers. Is that what you're referring to?
They would never go back into the classroom like that as a teacher position ever again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they are very content being the AP, and I will never, ever, ever go back into the classroom, ever be a teacher ever again.
What's that have to do with not supporting the teacher, though? That's where I'm not making the link. Like, they're like, I'm not a teacher anymore, so I can't help you.
Pretty much, and poor you, and sucks to be you, sort of a thing. That's the mentality, right?
Well, that sucks for the whole campus, because there's going to be a great divide, which is that they're not going to be feeling the support, in which case, where do they receive support? So they may then have to go to an instructional coach, the principal, or even higher up into the district. Yeah, that's going to be a tough road for everyone involved if that's the mentality, for sure.
Well, it depends on how many assistant principals there are. So, like, one of the answers to the question about, doing the instructional leadership work and so forth is about the structures of the school and how many people are in it. Mm-hmm. But if I were her, I just find a different support system. That person's not going to be helpful.
Totally.
I mean, elementary, you're lucky if you get one AP.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a lot of principals that are like, I finally got an AP, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit different structure. Whereas in middle school, you typically have anywhere between 2 and 4, depending on the size of the middle school, and then high school. I mean, they have a lot of resources in the secondary level.
I think I just feel like, as somebody who gets to decide who your assistant principals are across your school district, no matter how small or big your school district is, I really think, TJ, like that whole you're the backbone, that is going to stick with me. And I think that if you have the opportunity to hire people in those backbone positions, you better choose them very wisely. And I'm looking at mentality, and I'm looking at how you support teachers, and I'm looking at things that you say when you think that nobody is listening. I think you need to be very, very careful.
Well, I think there's... Go ahead, TJ.
Well, I was just going to say, anybody above an assistant principal in the hierarchy, they need to be talking to assistant principals as if they're going to be the next superintendent. I
mean, and that goes all the way to the bottom, where the district needs to be hiring with the anticipation that this person should be growing and could be rising to that level too.
I think, when a district has the mindset of grow our own talent, our leadership talent, that does start with like first year teacher, right? The idea of that being even an option. But to me, it seems that the assistant principals that I know that have stepped into the principalship and like rocked it, spent quite a number of years under principals that were really good and gifted, and just did that. They did it together, and I feel like that it might, again, here default to the administrators here, but like kind of seems like that's the ideal scenario where you work as a leadership team over a number of years. But if there's like this idea of, it's funny you say that, Josh, because my good friend of mine, I just saw the announcement last week, was promoted to the superintendent. He's the superintendent of like one of the largest school districts in the nation. It's right here in California. And I first met him when he came to our school as a AP. It was 20 years ago. We stayed in touch, and he's, similar to you, TJ, and like making that leap to the district leadership, and now he's at the helm of this massive district. So having that pipeline available, for folks, at least even the awareness of that, not that all some people like myself, I had never had any intention of leaving the classroom. So for those that it resonates with, having that vision as a district seems really important.
God,
I will say too, Kim, though, like that component of being smart about who your AP is, I would also challenge any principal that is trying to hire an AP that don't play the political game. Like, don't be a part of that, because the district will do a lot of things as far as like, this is the 4 that are, the chosen ones that you can interview, and you have to choose one of the 4. And I know plenty of principals, and this is rare, but that push back and no, these 4 don't fit my campus. They don't fit my student body. They don't fit what I need, and they push harder to then get that to be opened up even further, so that now there's 8 candidates, there's 10 candidates, and they won't budge until they find the person that's perfect for them, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, if it has to be one of the 4, then I choose so-and-so, right? Yeah. So I think there are sometimes other factors, unfortunately, that are not best for campuses. And so I would just challenge any principal to really, push back on the political side of things to make sure that they're getting the best candidate possible.
So you're saying hiring's not like a textbook adoption? Here's your 5 you get to choose from.
It kind of is.
Agreed, but I think it's interesting, and again, you two can probably speak to this more so than certainly me. As a department chair, I was in on the interview process, but that's a big job to feel like I'm going to know who the assistant principal is the right fit for my campus. I mean, you have to go into that with quite a bit of clarity, right? That's a lot of responsibility there that you got to step into. I do have one thing I'd like to throw off, hear what you guys have to say. Some of the best APs I know were not good teachers. They're really good assistant principals. But teach to save their life. They could connect with kids, but that whole kind of craft of teaching, art of teaching, no. You need to go be a principal. And
how does that make you feel?
What's that?
Well, I mean,
he's got the book about instructional leadership that you can get now on Amazon to pre-order. But I was wondering if that made you tick over there, TJ, as far as being an instructional leader and not being, like Mitch was talking about, a very good teacher in the classroom.
Well, I think there's layers to it. One, I was so uber focused on instructional leadership when I was assistant soup that if you weren't historically and reputationally one of the best teachers in your content area, I don't know that you would have gotten a fair shot really at an assistant principal role, because I wanted the assistant principals to be instructional leaders, and I wanted them to understand instruction, and I wanted to build systems around that to help them. But I was mostly a grow your own kind of person, and I was trying to hire the best teachers to be the best assistant principals, to be the best principals, to be the best directors. I wanted people to move up. I wanted people to have career goals. But I also do understand it to a degree, where you could have that teacher who's just good at making relationships with kids. I can picture them, like the archetype of the teachers, like they don't really know that grade of their content area. The classroom's not totally mismanaged, but it's kind of kids hanging out, but they love this person. And then you go and you walk the halls and you're a hero, and you can make great relationships with kids and keep them on a steady path to success. And you didn't necessarily have to be killing it with the jigsaw. Right. I mean, it wasn't that's not what I did, right, when I hired folks, but I can even picture some folks I knew who were really good at that, but then needed to be leveled up on the instructional side. I think that's okay. If that's who you're going to hire, I would just say, and now you've got to get that person the instructional leadership skills so that they're not saying to teachers, I'm never going back in the classroom. I can't help you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the instructional leadership, that's so important. But I'm just thinking of one person in particular that I sat in a classroom next to a room he was in with a student, and it was one of the most challenging students I had ever worked with. And I wasn't going to break through with this kid. And I happened to be like on prep or something and heard him. This was pre-AP. And I think he was working in special ed department, but I listened to him develop a relationship with this kid and build a bond. Completely broke through. And I was just, after hearing the whole conversation, just kind of eavesdropping, I went into the room, was just like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't do that, what he did. And I've watched him step up through leadership, and then now has been a principal, assistant principal, and he's really gifted at that role, but he's not the guy that's ever going to come in and be an instructional leader. I don't know if that's not to devalue what he does. He's amazing.
Of course not.
And he's found himself really thriving in alternative settings, like the continuation school. He was the AP. I mean, wherever the most challenging behavior is, dude's right there. Yeah, so great about relationships with kids. He raises pigs. He has a pig always because he makes sausage and stuff. He's kind of thinks of himself as like an urban farmer. But one year his pig he named it Bacon, and he would just walk around campus with a 5-gallon bucket at lunch and on breaks because kids are leaving crap all over the place, and he would go talk to kids, of course, some of the most challenging kids, tell them about his pig Bacon and ask for their food that they're not going to eat. And he would go feed all the food to this pig Bacon that afternoon. I mean, stuff like that like kids loved it.
Okay, I have a question for you guys. Like, I mean, I'm speaking elementary, but I guess we can go like anywhere, really. We could go middle and high school too. Like, describe to people listening exactly what an AP role looks like. Like, perhaps maybe your day-to-day duties. I'm just saying.
Insanity? Wrap it up in a bow, and it's insanity.
Listen, because I know there's teachers listening who are like, what does that AP do anyways? Right? Just talking to kids all day. They're just being that person. Like, they're just being the backbone. But like, what is it exactly? Like, tell the people. I think the people want to hear. Describe it.
So much. Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, as soon as you get on campus, you got people sitting at your door waiting to have, problem solving 101 with you. And then from there, you got to, go out to bus duty. You got to make sure that the campus is safe. I know for our 2 APs, and I was almost a decade in AP. I mean, campus safety is like number one on the list for that role. But then throughout the day, yeah, it's you're in the hallways, you're in classrooms, you're dealing with student problems, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with anyone that walks into the front office with any issues. I mean, I know what TJ was talking about is like, you are the support person. I always joke that I was the guy behind the lady, because I always worked for a woman principal, but like, they had the vision, and then I was supposed to go and figure out like how to implement it and how to make sure it stayed course. And so, yeah, you're constantly talking with people. You're on the phone, you're on the computer, you're emailing, you're talking with kids in the hallway. It seems like you always got a kid in your space in general. But then you throw in teacher evaluations, and you throw in plans that are due with the district, and PD things that you have to construct and implement. And then, yeah, I mean, it literally is just a full plate of different roles and responsibilities that I don't think teachers truly realize what all you have, because you literally have your hands in everything. Like, you just name the topic of the school, and the AP has their hands in it in some way, some form, and probably has all of it. Like, the entire thing is their responsibility. So, not to diminish what a principal does, because obviously they're in the same boat. It's just a different role and responsibility that they have versus the AP. But yeah, I think it's a thankless job. I think people misunderstand what the role is. I think they don't truly understand the impact that an AP has on your campus to keep it afloat. And unfortunately, I feel like it's an easy scapegoat when something goes bad, is to blame the AP.
I think my response is so similar to Josh, but I would say in that same realm of what he's discussing, the quality effective AP is constantly doing critical response and systemization. And so it's kind of talking about, it's dichotomous, because I'm going to talk out of two sides of my mouth. The first is, comes up on the walkie-talkie, go to it, do it. If the custodian needs help, do it. The bus driver comes off and says they want to talk to the principal, intervene and talk to the bus driver. If the principal's got a parent who's giving them flack about something, try to build a rapport with that parent and keep them out of the principal's office. If the teacher needs help and resources with whatever that lady said she needed, go do it. If it's hard, do it again. And so that is constantly critical response. On the backside of that, I would say is systemization, meaning if this is a problem and you dealt with it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we need to figure out how you're not going to deal with it on Friday. If it's a problem that happened the first week in September and the first week in October and the first week in November because of whatever it was, you've got to solve that so that you're not constantly solving problems over and over again. Like, solving problems over and over again is not a system. We can get really good at that and not be good at our jobs.
Right.
So that's hard to sink in. So systemization. And last thing I'll say, because I said I was going to come back to the domain piece, you're in charge of your domain as an assistant principal. You got to think of yourself as the principal of that domain. You oversee the second grade team. You oversee CTE. You oversee mathematics. You oversee the science department. You have the kindergarten class. Whatever it is, I'm going to be the best. I oversee the counselors. I'm going to be the best at that. The whole rest of the school could be crumbling down. The other APs, their domain is not taken care of, maybe even the principal. But as an AP, my domain, my English teachers, oh yeah, you're going to see a difference with what they do in the classroom versus any other English teacher department in the whole district, if not the state. You're going to see it, hear it, and feel it when you come into my English teachers' classrooms, and they're going to tell you about it too. And so that's where, like, you don't have to just be a part of whatever's happening in the culture. You can change the culture on a mini scale, but you can't do it by just responding to the chaos. You have to respond to the chaos, but then how do you diminish that chaos on the back end?
Yeah, because that's going to result in burnout. You can't. Right. You got to have systems in place, or otherwise and maybe that's why the average person in that role isn't very long.
Well, I think you have to have those domains clearly identified for you.
Yes.
Or else what do you do? Because it can't just all be, well, I should say it this way probably. If those domains, as you call them, TJ, aren't clearly defined and established, then I could see the job devolving into just tyranny of the urgent, just putting out fires, but to have no, that was absolutely how I ran my department as a department chair. It's like, okay, I know my domain. I know this is my team and this is what we're going to do. And we're going to be the best. And people left neighboring schools to try to move into our department. And, so if that's not established, I could see it one being super overwhelming for an AP. But I'm also I can't say empathetic because I haven't done the job, but I'm sympathetic. Like all this you're talking about, the two of you, and then I'm also going to come to you for instructional leadership. That's just a lot, especially if those domains are poorly established. And I'm just thinking back to my mentor teachers were in a mentor teacher role. They all ended up becoming assistant principals and so on. So I wonder if there's something there too for like a district structure to say, okay, is it realistic to expect an AP to be an instructional leader? Maybe not.
Well, I think they have to.
Yeah.
I guess it would be on the level of like, how much do you provide, right? Like the way that we had it was like 33% of my teachers on my campus are mine. And then the principal has 33%, the other AP has 33%. And the reason you do that is because as a principal, typically a district views them as the instructional leaders of that campus. Well, if I'm being prepared to then become a principal someday, well, I have to have my hands in that. I have to have experience in that. I have to, hone that craft to then become the instructional leader of my campus later on, if that's what I so choose to do. So like, I understand the concept of it. It's just like, but then you add in all of these other roles and responsibilities, right? I am the administrator of special education, which I was every year. Well, that means that technically I'm supposed to be in every single ARB for my campus. So is that accounted for as far as my other roles and responsibilities due to the fact that that takes so much of my time? Right. And I can continue with that. But as far as the slices of pie, I think if we're mindful of where our other roles and responsibilities are, then maybe the instructional leadership is you still get a taste of it and you're still honing the craft, but maybe it's just a smaller percentage versus 33%.
It kind of depends on the structure of the school, but I will say for APs listening, if you're not honing your instructional leadership skills, you are doing a disservice to your career, period. So if you're the guy or the gal who ended up with all the discipline because you're good at it and everybody relies on you for that, and you also oversee the buses and the cafeteria schedule, and you're not getting into classrooms, I'm not saying you can't be a principal eventually, but you're limiting yourself from being a principal. And the system is letting that happen to you. And I would advocate for myself either by moving jobs or saying to my principal or whoever built that structure, hey, I would like 33%, or I would like a caseload, or can I start to do walkthroughs? And I've coached assistant principals on this very thing where they're like, I just get all of the hard stuff that the principal doesn't want to do. And I'm like, that's good. And you're going to continue to do that. And they're going to rely on you for it. But you can't settle into that as a default experience. You do have, if you want to grow in education, we're a teaching and learning business. You have to be good at teaching and learning and helping with social and emotional learning and helping with classroom management and helping with durable skills and executive functioning. Like, you need to know that stuff. Read Mitch's book, read Josh's book, read Kim's book. That's your responsibility for yourself. Even if the system is not allowing that, you need to be an expert in it. And just one more thing. I love this book, Leading Up, How to Lead Your Boss So You Both Win. When you're an assistant principal, you're leading up and down all the time. You're leading your teachers to support them, and you're leading your principal, and you're pushing the system a little bit. Now, you don't have total control over that, but you can help your boss win and the school win. And I would say very rare, if ever, is there a circumstance where the assistant principal in public goes against the principal. That's bad news.
Don't do that. I mean, and you can have crucial conversations behind the scenes, and I didn't agree with everything with my principals, but that was not something that anybody knew except for me and the principal. And that was a closed door conversation that was respectful, that was sharing why I didn't agree with it. And then whatever the principal decided, that's what they decided, and we were moving forward with it. But at least I shared my concerns with it or why I didn't agree with it. But in the end, they are the boss. They're responsible for the campus. And so, of course, they're going to be the last decision moving forward. And if you have a good relationship with them, obviously they're going to take that feedback better than if you had conflicting relationship. And maybe that then turns into maybe more about defending their honor or decision or ego. But hopefully you have a good relationship and rapport where you can share those concerns with ease.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about the domain. Now the backbone is going to stick in my brain, and also the domain. And I think in the schools that I've worked in that have an assistant principal, it's rare, you guys, in elementary schools. It is rare. But in the ones that have an assistant principal, and the assistant principal has taken the domain of this social emotional learning leadership group or bison group or whatever they call it, if they've been an active participant in that, in the learning, in the growth, right? And they also are leading that charge. We would say you're leading the charge, you're leading your herd, and you're in those classrooms and you're doing it together. Those schools, man, it feels different across that campus. It feels light. It feels good. There's less behaviors. The teachers are happy. Like, it just feels so different. And when you have an assistant principal who has just been like, well, Kim and her team are here, so off you go. Great. Glad you're here. Bye. Like, those schools crumble. It just crumbles, right? We were talking about support at the very beginning. That doesn't feel like support. Your teachers don't feel supported by you when you just kind of say, great, glad you're here. And there is no like, I'm tackling this domain. But I think it takes action, intention, right? And action. And I love that. I love that you said that.
And Kim, just a side note on that, though, because we were talking about this pre-show.
Yeah. I was about to get into this too, TJ.
Yeah, if you've demonized the assistant principal, or you've made them into something who they're not, or you haven't supported them, like reciprocating this relationship, maybe it's through student discipline, a decision they made you didn't like. I was talking about the kids maybe are gravitating towards the assistant principal and dislike the teacher or whatever. When you demonize that person, they're not gonna turn around and then be part of your bison team. Right. Like, that's not. So we've got to figure out systems where we're all working together towards a shared vision versus any type of us versus them. And I'm not defending bad behavior on an assistant principal's part, but I am defending when the teachers want something on this week that they didn't want last week and they don't want next week. Like, we've got to develop a shared vision. And if you want them to lead that work like you're describing, they need to feel the support from the people who want to be a part of that team too, as much as they need to support that person. We've got to remember that assistant principals, they're very lonely positions. Like, I would say maybe the school nurse, but like, these are the positions, there's only one of them.
Yeah. Right. Well, and also don't assume, like, we've talked about this in, I think, previous episodes. Like, if you send an email like, hey, can I see you? And when you have it 5 minutes and they come running down because they think they're getting fired, like, I know that's human nature. We like fill in the blank with the negative, but like, sometimes assistant principals have information that they cannot provide to teachers. It sucks. It is what it is. And so there has to be some trust, and hopefully the AP is trying to do that as far as building a relationship with their teachers, allowing them to understand, like, you're there for the kids, you're there for them, you're also there for the parents, you're also there for everybody else, right? So you're trying to balance all of these different plates so that they don't break. But at the same point, like, sometimes it's just like, you got to trust me that I know what I'm doing, and moving forward, it will get better. Unfortunately, folks aren't patient and they assume too much. And so the patience piece is like, they want the behavior, specifically to student behavior, to change on a dime. That doesn't happen. That's not human nature. Like, it requires literally a rewiring of the brain for a child to get new behaviors to be exhibited in a learning environment. And so it was a lot of conversations about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what the end result will be. And sometimes I had to let them know, like, the result may not be here in the 4 years that they're with us. Right. Most likely that change is going to happen in high school or in adulthood when we don't even see it. So just stay on course with it. And unfortunately, what happened very often was that there was frustration with that, in which case then it came back on me. And so, because I'm the disciplinary, I'm supposed to be the sheriff. And what sucks as far as the AP role goes is that a lot of times you feel like you're the bad guy in most situations because you're pissing someone off. You're either pissing the kid off, the parents off, the teacher off, or someone else in the building. And so I just say whoever's in the AP role, you really have to be confident in who you are and what you're doing. And if you do believe in those two things, stay the course, because it, like TJ said, it's a lonely job, but no one's coming in to support you. No one's coming in to lift you up. So like you have to be confident in what you're doing to know that it's going to be better for everyone involved. And hopefully folks see that on the back end. But yeah, it's very, very difficult in those situations.
Lonely job, but it must fill the right person's cup too. Right? There's a lot of negative interactions, the AP that we're kind of talking about here, but there's probably, I hope, a lot of positive parent interactions and kid interactions and teacher interactions,
For sure.
And for all the teachers on the call, just if you're stepping out to get a coffee, text your AP. That's what I would do every time. Yeah, I was like, not in the morning, I figured it already had, and every time it'd be like iced coffee with cream, please. I'm like, okay. Sit on his desk and leave, be some of those positive relationships that they might need depending on the day.
I mean, for a tough kid, I had a kid that was in my office, TJ, for his entire 6th grade year. Hated school. He was labeled, he would just walk out of class, all that kind of stuff. And 7th grade, he was a completely different student, didn't even get one referral. Parents raved about like, thank God he came to the school, built a relationship with you. Now, does that mean 6th grade year I didn't hear from teachers or frustration or like all the crap that I was talking about before? No, of course I had to work through all that. But eventually, what was the byproduct? A successful student who was thriving from that point on throughout and hopefully change the trajectory of that child's life, right? So to Mitch's point, yes, it's worth it. And when you get that phone call from the parent that's like raving about that, like, yeah, of course that fills your cup. Or the teacher saying, oh my gosh, I remember this kid. I was so fearful of having him on my roll at the beginning of the school year, and he's a perfect model student now. Like those moments right there is what it's all about.
Yeah, because I did that work for so long, I have like adults who I can text right now who were a mess in middle and high school.
For sure.
And they're fine. They're like super good, contributor to society, all the things we say we want kids to eventually be. So you do have to believe in kids. And to Mitch's point, I think you also have to believe in the long-term impact you're having on kids and the system that we just don't get to see. We're planting seeds and we're never going to see the trees. And so I think like that's super important too, to have that long-term vision that you're helping humans, not just necessarily a 6th grader who blew up on a Wednesday. And I hope teachers can see that too. I really do. Because that's what great systems do, is they prepare students, they prepare people for life, not just academics and next year.
I love that. Josh, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I was looking at the clock. I think it's time, right? So, all right. So we're going to continue this next week, and we're going to talk about principles. So that's going to be the 3rd part of the 4-part series. So stick with us as we are continuously going through the various roles here. If you need support or want to reach out to us, of course, in the show notes, we have our websites. So make sure you're clicking on that and grabbing the free downloads, grabbing books, checking out other people's podcasts, whatever we got on our websites. Make sure you're going through there. And of course, if you have questions or other topics that you want touched on, we do our mailbag episode, which will be coming up here soon as we end this series on leadership. We'll jump into the mailbag. So if there's anything that you want us to expand on, maybe you're upset, maybe you're wanting to, provide some more context to something. Be good, TJ. If if you want us to expand on something else, we'd love to do that. But we want you to do that in the comment section, so you can throw in your questions if you want us to expand on a topic in YouTube or on Spotify, and we look forward to all of those. Or you can just reach out to Kim. I know a lot of Kim's community is listening right now, so you can always box her or hit her up in her various Facebook groups. And with that, we appreciate every single person that's listening. Our numbers continuously go up, and we know it's because you are not only consuming, but you're also sharing out the episodes, and we want you to continuously do that for whoever needs to hear these conversations. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up, and I hope everyone has a fantastic week.